Faye and I flew back from Colorado on Wednesday afternoon. She slept the entire flight, despite the noise, which amazed me. I can't sleep on planes because I'm absolutely terrified of flying. I'd rather stay a night in that cabin again. When we got home, I ordered us a pizza, and she wolfed it down. Her appetite has returned in full force, which is great news. I mentioned this in my original post, but Faye has an undiagnosed sleep disorder. She has pronounced night terrors, sleep talking, and occasional sleepwalking. This disorder lies dormant 90% of the time, but it tends to flare up when she's under a lot of stress. If we're moving, if she's changing jobs, or if a relative dies, I can expect a night of horrifying talking and odd behavior. Needless to say, our experiences at the cabin have set Faye on edge. Although she's in high spirits, she's still afraid at night. I am too. That night after pizza, she fell asleep on the couch while we watched Wedding Crashers. At around 10 p.m, the movie ended and I turned the TV off. As I brought our plates to the kitchen, I passed by the stairwell and heard a faint noise from upstairs that sounded like a man sighing. I shrugged it off and woke Faye up. We brushed our teeth and went to bed. Faye talked in her sleep a lot that night, and it started about 1 a.m. I woke up to her calling out, "What did you do?" and "Do you need help?" and laughing. This isn't really unusual for her. She babbled occasionally, said a funny few things, etc. I woke up again around 4 and heard her talking, but this time she was doing something she's never done before. We've been together for almost 5 years, and not once has she ever whispered in her sleep. But now she was whispering with her back turned to me. For a second, I thought someone was lying on the floor at the edge of her bed, talking back to her. This disturbed the shit out of me, so I sat up and leaned over her, trying to listen in the dark. The only thing I heard her say discernibly was, I asked her, "Faye, what are you talking about?" And she didn't respond. I said, "Who are you talking to?" And she replied, "Don't," and nudged me. Another unusual thing happened. At about 5:45 a.m, I woke up to Faye getting back into bed. She hurried into the bedroom from the hall and got back into bed quickly, making zero attempt not to wake me. First of all, Faye does not get up, ever. She sleeps like a dead horse, and even if she went to the bathroom in the middle of the night, which she never does, the bathroom is not down the hall. It's in our bedroom. When I asked her what she was doing the next morning, she claimed to have no memory of it. I spent all day Thursday thinking about why Faye was still acting weird. I was the one who found the dream catcher and got close to it. I was the one who interacted with the voices at the cabin. And then I remembered something. On our last night in Colorado, at her parents' house, Faye got back into bed at around the same time, 5:45 a.m. I barely remembered because I was half asleep, but the image returned to my head. She'd been getting up really early for a few days. So last night, I set my phone's alarm to vibrate and I put the time to 4:45 a.m. In the middle of the night, Faye started talking again. This time, she was doing the same thing she did at the cabin, changing her voice to sound like someone else. In 5 years, she sleep-talked a bunch, but has never whispered or changed her voice until recently. She said a few things which I tried to commit to memory. La la la, this was flat monotone. Shh, but this was more like a sharp exhale, followed by day on or tay all over and over. He's still in the trees. Where were you? I looked for you. And, oh, it's time. About the same time, I heard a noise outside, which sounded like an old man grumbling to himself about something. We live in NorCal, in a really woodsy town, so when you look out our bedroom window, there are tons of trees across the street. It was very dark, but I'm fairly certain I saw a man walking behind the first line of trees. He was too far away to be the one grumbling, but it is very unusual to see anyone over there at this time of night. In fact, I've never seen anyone there at night, ever. Looking outside required me to open the curtains, which lit up our room with moonlight. When I looked back at the bed, Faye was lying there with her neck craned toward me, her eyes crazy wide and fixed on me, and her mouth was open. She issued this really frightening, gurgly, drawn-out groan and flicked her tongue around. It looked like an epileptic fit in slow motion or something. Faye has definitely opened her eyes in her sleep, but never like this. She looked like a fucking murderer. I got so scared, I called her name really loud and woke her up. She was confused and asked me why I was at the window. I lied and said I was just closing it because it was cold. I didn't want her to know that I'd heard a voice. We talked a bit, but I'll skip that because this is getting long. My alarm woke me at 4:45 a.m. and I laid there, awake, waiting for Faye to get up like she had been the past few nights. She breathes very rhythmically when she's asleep, so I can always tell how deep she's under. At around 5:20, she sat straight up, swung her legs out of the bed, and tiptoed down the hall. I followed behind. When I say that my fiancée tiptoed, I don't mean like a child on Christmas Eve. This was robotic, alien, inhuman. She moved like a meth-addicted ballerina zombie down the hall and stopped at the stairwell. Her breathing never changed. I just stood there in our bedroom, poking my head out into the dark hall. Faye looked down the stairs, still standing rigidly on the balls of her feet, swaying to and fro slightly. She did some weird shit. She touched her face slowly for several minutes, touched the banister, touched the wall, flicked the light on and off a few times, all the while maintaining her perfectly regular coma breathing. Then she reached an arm out in a motion of a bicep curl, stretched her fingers and wiggling them, then curling them, her hand and her arm back up to her face. I watched her do this motion for about 4 minutes. It looked like she was testing the limb, as if she'd never used it before. But then I realized she was actually communicating with someone on the first floor of the house. She was making a come hither motion. With full confidence that Faye was sleepwalking, I walked into the hall and leaned over the half wall that overlooks the living room. It was totally dark down there. I couldn't see anything but the clock on the cable box. Faye stood there, waving, smiling, making gestures, and then touching her face and pulling gently on her hair. I carefully ushered her back to bed and talked to her softly, trying not to actually wake her. She didn't resist, she never does, and went back to sleep without another word. I have zero clue of what the fuck is going on. I told her this morning what she did, and now we have a doctor's appointment for her at 3 p.m. today. I took Faye to see her doctor yesterday, and we hesitantly explained what was going on with her. I left out the paranormal stuff because I didn't want to get put into a ward. She seemed really concerned about Faye, ordered a blood test, gave her a physical, asked her about her diet and drugs, medications, etc. Faye and I are both non-drinkers, non-drug users, and neither of us are on any medication. She wants Faye to be evaluated by a psychiatrist next week. For now, she gave her a sedative at night and some anti-anxiety medication. She wants us to get some fresh air and get out of the house, so we're going on a hike today. A Redditor named Pixie Dix brought up the possibility that the child's voice outside the cabin asking, "When do we go inside? When do we go inside?" might not refer to inside the cabin, but rather inside Faye. This really worries me, because it corroborates some of the strange behaviour she's been exhibiting in her sleep. I contacted the park ranger, who is pretty sympathetic to our situation, and he's going to get in touch with some of the members of his tribe who have experience with spiritual guidance and medicine. He is convinced that Faye and I have attracted the attention of the ones who come out of the mines. Lucky us. More on that later. Some Redditors have recommended that I test Faye to see if it's really her. So yesterday evening, against my wallet's advice, I took her out to our favourite steakhouse. I only ever order one meal there, medium tri-tip, house macaroni plus cheese and a bottle of root beer. Faye only ever orders one meal there too, the barbecue chicken sandwich with mac cheese and a salad with ranch dressing and a Coke. She drinks Coke only. Her blood is mostly Coca-Cola. Faye took a long time deciding what to order and ended up ordering a fucking New York strip. I jokingly told her to order for me too, and she said, "I don't know what you want." She also ordered water instead of Coke. Usually we have arguments over how much Coke she drinks, and I'm always trying to get her to hydrate better and just drink water. This was really unsettling to me. At the end of the night, when we were walking back to my car, I kissed her temple and asked if she still liked it when I called her Noodle. She said, of course. I've never called her Noodle in my entire life. Her nickname has always been Monkey Toes. It's a long story. When we got back home, she cracked open a Coke and got on Facebook, which is completely normal for her. This threw me off. One thing that's been on my mind lately is the song that the little kid was singing outside the cabin. For those of you who don't know, in the middle of the night at this cabin in Colorado, we heard a child's voice coming out of the forest singing an eerie song. I've been catching myself humming it almost every day. Oh Sol Mi Do. I asked Faye if it meant anything to her, and I sang it to her while she was sitting on the couch. After a few repetitions, she sort of went blank, like she was hypnotized, and just wobbled back and forth ever so slightly for about 8 seconds, then snapped out of it and said, I don't remember that." Last night is when the shit hit the fan. I haven't gotten a full night's rest in over a week now, and it's starting to make me feel over-emotional and crazy. Faye started murmuring in her sleep around 1 as usual, but I couldn't understand much of it. She sat up in bed, took the sheets off her legs like she was going to get up, but I grabbed her arm and asked her what she was doing. She said, "Tell them to leave." Her eyes were completely shut. I asked her, Who needs to leave?" She sat there for about 2 minutes, not speaking, just sitting straight up. I asked again, and she replied, "There's a man at the door." Then, about 10 seconds later, "And a woman at the bottom of the stairs." Of course, this made every single hair on my entire body bristle. I got up and went downstairs, turning on every single light as I went, and carrying my buck knife with me. Nobody was in our house. I looked in every single room downstairs, and even in the backyard. When I got back to the stairwell, I heard someone stomping around upstairs. Someone had turned the light to the upstairs hallway off. I stood at the bottom of the stairs, looking up, trying to listen, but the noises stopped. So I walked up into our bedroom and got back into bed. It was likely that Faye had gotten up to go to the bathroom or sleepwalked a bit in the room and went back to bed. I fell asleep pretty fast, but woke up again only a few minutes later. Faye was gone. I heard movement down the hall, so I looked out into it, and I saw Faye coming out of the other bedroom. She staggered down the hall toward me, then stopped, turned around, and walked back in the other direction. She did this 7 or 8 times. She was walking in almost the same way as the night before, standing really high up on her toes, her legs totally rigid like they were made of cement, and her arms completely limp and flopping back and forth. It was extremely fucking terrifying seeing her move like that. She was totally graceless. It was like someone was testing out a human body for the first time. At that same moment, I heard a noise through the bedroom window and ran over to check, thinking someone was really at the front door. You can see down to the front entryway from our bedroom window. Off in the distance, about 30 yards out, somebody was walking back and forth in the exact same way that Faye was. He was humming loudly and intermittently singing. The song sounded like the one I sang to Faye earlier, the one the child sang outside the cabin. I made this YouTube video explaining what happened. Basically, I ran back into the hall, woke Faye up and brought her downstairs. I opened the front door to get a better look at the man, but he was gone. Today, at the behest of a few Redditors, I asked Faye if she'd ever been to that cabin before we visited it. I don't know why I never thought to ask her before this. She said nothing about it when we stayed there for several nights. She was hesitant to answer me, and eventually admitted that she'd been there once before when she was 14. She and her parents went snowshoeing up the mountain. A few hours later, I emailed her mother and asked the same question. She told me that Faye had gone to the cabin multiple times as a child but stopped going when she went into high school. I can't figure out which one of them is lying to me. Because so many people have questions about Faye, she has agreed to do a film interview. If you post questions for her, I'll film her response and post them here within a few days. I haven't told Faye this, but I'm thinking of going back to the cabin and meeting with the ranger. He wants to do some ritual with the dream catcher we found, if it's still there, and he says he'll bring his friends and try to cleanse the house and the surrounding area. This will cost me like $500 just to fly out there, but if this shit gets any worse, it might be worth it. Edit. A Redditor sent me a private message telling me to investigate the guest room to see if Faye was doing anything in there. It turns out she was. She had written the number 5 on the window with her finger. I only saw it because of the condensation from the cold this afternoon. It's written backwards so that someone standing in our backyard can read it. I cannot tell you how much all of your support has meant to us over the past few days. Faye feels so good knowing that people are constantly asking about her health, and I feel like a few of your suggestions have literally saved her life, so thank you from the bottom of my heart. I don't even know where to begin. So much has happened in the last 2.5 days. The sedatives and anti-anxiety meds the doctor gave to Faye worked during the day, and she has been less stressed. However, at night, her behavior is still highly unusual. I have taken the overwhelming consensus of the Redditors seriously. I went out and purchased a bunch of childproofing materials for the house to prevent Faye from harming herself or going outside while sleepwalking. I couldn't afford a bunch of cameras. Sorry, I'm a teacher. I bought these knob covers that little kids and hopefully sleepwalkers are too stupid to figure out, outlet covers in case she tries to jam anything into them, and I hid the kitchen knives. I also brought in a spiritual healer after very carefully searching for one. It's my opinion that 99% of them are frauds and hucksters, but this woman, she didn't charge us anything, and she was recommended by close family. She is the daughter of a Shoshone tribal elder. The long and short of it is, she believes that our house is not haunted. However, she says that Faye feels very off. She said that she couldn't get a good read on her at all, and that there is a dark cloud over her. Still suspicious of this woman, I took her to a random upstairs window and told her that I had seen something outside near the edge of the woods, mimicking Faye sleepwalking, which was true, but I pointed out the wrong window to the wrong part of the forest. She quietly examined the other window upstairs and said that our bedroom window, the correct one, gave her a terrible feeling. She said, "He watches from here. She can hear him whispering at night." We told her everything. She was horrified by our story. The look on her face unsettled me so much. It was like she'd never heard of anything this bad. She went out of the room and had to collect herself downstairs. The woman prayed for several minutes, sang a beautiful song in a language I can't even begin to describe, and saged our entire house. She put some kind of crushed herbs on the ground in front of the 2 doors that led into our home. Then she told me in private, "You are dealing with the Hollow Ones." She said its name, her ancestral language, but I can't even come close to remembering it or spelling it. She said that one is infatuated with Faye and will do absolutely anything to get inside our house, but the process takes time. I don't know if I actually buy any of this, but at least she didn't sell it to me. We also had Faye take a pregnancy test, as recommended by many Redditors. The woman said that it was a good idea, and good news, not pregnant. And the woman stood in the bathroom with her like a prison guard so she couldn't fuck with the test. We then thanked the woman, and she left. That night, we attached a little jingle bell from Faye's Christmas-themed lingerie to a hair scrunchie and put it around her ankle. I'm such a light sleeper that there's no way she'd be able to get out of the bed without waking me. Faye fell asleep really fast due to the meds, out like a light in a few minutes. I lay in bed thinking about the 5 she wrote on the window in her sleep a few nights earlier, and reasoned that it meant 5 a.m. and not 5 days, as some Redditors had speculated. This makes sense because she'd been getting up at that time to sleepwalk every night for 4 nights now. Since the 5 was written backwards, facing the backyard, I reasoned that it was a signal to whoever or whatever was out there. She was going to try to let it inside. I eventually fell asleep and I had a fucking horrifying dream. Something came into the house through the sliding glass door to the yard and walked up the stairs and into our bedroom. It sat at the edge of our bed, rubbing Faye's foot and staring at us. It was completely wreathed in shadow. I couldn't see it at all, except for a silhouette, just like the video I posted about what I saw a few nights earlier. I woke up soaked in sweat and I couldn't fall back to sleep for a while. 5 a.m. rolled around and the reliable little jingle bell woke me right up. In her sleep, Faye did something she's never done before. She stood up on the bed, rigid as a board, and stared out the window. I shouldn't really say stared because her eyes were closed, but she was alert, watching, listening. She remained there like a statue for at least 5 minutes. I also didn't move, I just watched. Then she slowly raised her hand and started waving at someone outside. My skin crawled when she did that. She definitely knew someone was there, even with her eyes shut. Faye then stepped off the bed and darted to the bedroom door, trying to get out into the hallway, but the childproof knob had stopped her. She couldn't figure it out in her sleep. She did another thing that she's never done while sleepwalking. She got extremely angry and started pulling on the cover. She shrieked and growled like a trapped animal. After about 30 seconds of this, she woke herself up. She started crying really hard and told me that in her nightmares, she had seen a man without a face walking through the halls of our home, whispering her name and looking for her. I sat up and talked with her for an hour, and then we went back to sleep. When I woke up again, it was around 10 a.m. and Faye was gone. The bedroom window was open. As I walked downstairs, I saw her in the backyard reading. Every single window in the entire house was open, and it was like 55 degrees outside. She told me the smell of the sage made her nauseous, and she wanted to get out of the house. I couldn't smell anything. I suggested that we go to the church downtown today to speak with a priest. She's Catholic, but she refused. So I had my buddy Kay, who is very, very devout Catholic, come over with some holy water and his crucifix. Apparently, Kay told his priest what was going on, and the guy very reluctantly blessed the water and told us to call him. Faye was irritated that I'd done this without her permission, and waited outside while Kay set up a few little crosses and his big crucifix around the house. Faye refused to have any holy water put on her. She kept saying, "I'm freezing, don't you dare." She's going to be super pissed when she finds out I put that shit in her shampoo and conditioner bottles. She was in a really nasty mood all morning, but after we went out for lunch, she was feeling better and agreed to film the interview video and answer questions from Redditors. While filming, I noticed that she wasn't wearing her engagement ring and realized that she hadn't been wearing it in several days. I asked her where it was and she said that it was in our luggage, which we've now only partially unpacked. Later, when I checked, it wasn't there. I'm worried about this for a few reasons. I will post the video as soon as she watches and approves it. She's really self-conscious. You can probably expect it within a few days. I've finally begun moving some more of the photos from the cabin onto my laptop too. I cannot bring myself to listen to those voice recordings yet. Since this is getting over long, flash forward to last night. I got up at 1 a.m. to pee, and I knocked the bell scrunchie off the bed. Faye had taken it off and was gone. I got angry and scared at the same time. I found her sitting on the stairs, looking down into the dark, spreading her arms open like she was trying to get a child to climb the staircase for its first time. She was smiling with her eyes closed. As I usually do, I gently got her up and walked her back to bed. When I laid down next to her, she leaned over and, with her eyes still closed, said, "They're gonna kill you," and then licked my face. I called her parents today to arrange a flight back to Colorado. They're paying for it. Her mum Laura admitted to me that something had happened to Faye as a child at the cabin. That is where her sleep disturbances started, when she was 5. I have had enough, and they can tell. They spoke with the ranger at Pikes Peak again, and he's arranging for me to meet with him and his buddies from their tribe who knows the entire history of the area and all of the hauntings that other visitors have reported. Faye will be staying with my 2 best friends, R and J, and Jay's fiancée, A. I've known all 3 of them since high school, and they are completely informed about all these events. They will guard her with their lives. In short, I'm going back to the cabin, alone. I'll update soon, but no matter what happens, I'm not going to drag this out any further on Reddit. I've polluted this place enough with my problems. Edit. Folks, I won't be going to the cabin alone. I'm meeting the ranger and his friends there. His two friends are from his tribe or nation. Sorry, I don't remember the correct terminology. And they are healers. They know all about Pikes Peak and the ongoing situation. I'm not going out easy. Update. I dropped Faye off at my friend's place. They'll take care of her. I'm heading to the airport now. No idea when I'll get back. We'll try tonight if I'm not too tired after landing. Update. Midnight, 26th of April, Colorado. I'm at Faye's parents', exhausted. Talked to her parents extensively. Got word from my friends. Faye started feeling really ill, wanted to go home. They've moved the whole posse over to our house, which has been saged, blessed, protected, covered in holy water and crucifixes, and she's allegedly doing much better now. Richard and Jason's fiancée Allison are all sleeping over for a few nights to ensure Faye is alright. I'm heading to the cabin tomorrow morning to meet the ranger. Update, 9:45, Colorado. Leaving in 1 hour to go to the cabin. Update, 5:15 p.m. Spotty bullshit Wi-Fi, snowing like crazy up here. Met with the ranger, investigated the cabin. Nothing unusual inside, except a lampshade removed from a lamp, which he claims was not like that when he came in here a few days ago. His friends will be here tomorrow morning. I'm alone for tonight. I went outside for just a minute when it was still light to grab some things from the truck and heard 2 voices. I'm making short videos with my phone. I will try to upload them. Update, 9:12 p.m. So much has gone down. I'm really scared, and I haven't slept. I'm writing a huge post right now with everything that's happened. I will post it tomorrow morning because I know I can't finish it tonight. I'm about to fall asleep in my chair. I'm sorry to keep you waiting.